Okay, buddy. Well, I'll conclude that. I'll step back, and if you want to ask any questions, then there's a load of flat earthers here who will answer your questions, buddy.
Okay. Oh, sure. Thank you. So I did ask firstly about what you think causes objects to fall down in one direction at such.
So really, I'll take that. So things fall down, go boom, boom, go splash, splash, right?
If they go very fast, then yes.
Right. What about a helium balloon?
Yeah, that's interesting in a way. It is lighter than air, less dense.
What about helium, hydrogen, nitrogen, hot air, water vapor, all the gases that go in every different vector conceivable that don't go down, go boom, boom, go splash, splash? What about those? Oh, gas.
Well, the thing is, from what I learned, or from what I think I learned, is that lighter or less denser.
Well, that doesn't have anything to do with your gravity, right? So gravity doesn't affect those. So thereby saying that all things don't fall down, go boom, boom, go splash, splash. Then.
Well, the only station in which the gas bubbles or the gas balloons or helium balloons don't go up is when when the thing itself experiences no acceleration. Like when you drop, let's say, when you drop something like if you have a water bottle with bubbles in them, if you drop the bottle, the bubbles won't rise.
I'm talking about helium, hydrogen, nitrogen, oxygen. Those things don't fall down, go boom, boom, go splash, splash. You said, please explain why things fall down. Obviously, you're talking about gravity. So let's get to gravity. Which gravity are you speaking of?
The universal God of the earth.
The universal. Are you talking about the universal law of gravitation?
Well, yes.
Yes. So that's Newton's universal law of gravitation. Unfortunately, that is debunked pseudoscience, and you're 106 years out of date currently.
106?
Yes. Because Einstein's general theory of relativity superseded and knocked Einstein from the throne in 1915.
Well, from my knowledge, Einstein's theory just made it the theory more precise, right?
No. Number one, the universal law of gravitation wasn't ever a theory. Newton never proposed a scientific theory in his life. Number two, scientific theories, actual ones, never explain alleged scientific laws, because then it would make that law not a law anymore. Number three, like I said, Einstein's general relativity superseded, then knocked it from the throne in 1915. Do you have a problem? Do you have an issue with that?
Well, to me, it seems that it's just a more complex yet and more accurate version.
No, it's not more accurate at all. Einstein's general theory of relativity deals with pseudo-Riemannian force space, and it is proposing the bending and warping of space-time. That has nothing to do with Newton.
Well, but the theory itself doesn't talk about gravity.
What theory?
Einstein's theory of gravity described, how the bending of space affects objects moving in time.
Yeah, well, it describes it, which tells you that it's not a theory in the first place, because theories don't describe, they explain the hows and the whys. That's one big problem.
Oh, don't they also predict?
What I'm trying to say is that when you say gravity, you should really be talking about Einstein's general theory of relativity in 1915. Is that correct?
Because it's better than Newton's?
It's not better. It's superseded. Newton was superseded. It got debunked.
Well, Newton, he would get debunked, but...
all right, let's get rid of this, because this will make it a lot quicker. Sure. And are you in live stream voice text at 30 minutes after the hour?
Yes, you mean debate text in the entry level?
Live stream voice text is just above this room. # live stream voice text.
I can't seem to find it.
Does he have can somebody give him permissions?
Yeah, just gave you permission.
Oh, thank you.
Buddy, it's the text stream that's just above this live stream. Yeah.
Oh, yeah, I can see it now.
So go down to quantum eraser. I'm near the bottom.
Quantum rays.
Yeah, I got a Santa hat on with fire wings, with the Terminator. Green eyes.
You mean the one when you quite nicely point your finger at us?
No, keep going down.
Oh,
30 minutes after the hour.
30 minutes past the hour. Big yellow letters. Quantum eraser. Newton's classical mechanics were superseded. From there, buddy.
oh yeah, I can see it now. Well,
Okay,
so
I'll
nice.
go over these real quick from the Alma Mater Wiki. Newton's classical mechanics were superseded in the early 20th century when Albert Einstein developed the special general theory of relativity. This is the real kicker, Douglas Klein, Phys Libre text, Newton's two crowning achievements, the laws of motion and the laws of gravitation that have reigned supreme since published in the Principia Atom in 1687, were toppled from the throne by Einstein. So you see what I'm talking about? They were completely toppled, replaced.
Is it not? It seems to me to be just a figure of speech. Like
It's not a figure of speech. That's not a rhetorical device.
Well, we don't put theories on thrones.
Oh my God. Number one, Newton never proposed a scientific theory in his life. What does fucking superseded mean then, Mr. Rhetorical Device?
Superseded, as in was used instead.
Yes, exactly. So, can we move on to Einstein's general theory of relativity and your gravity now?
Sure.
Yes. So, when you say gravity, you immediately invoke the general theory of relativity, which was published November 15th, 1915. Now, to be an actual scientific theory, you would have to have an actual scientific experiment validating it so it can become a scientific theory in the first place. So, we're going to need the observed natural phenomena, the hypothesis, and the experiment from Einstein's paper, General Theory of Relativity, published in 1915. Can you do that, please?
From find his original paper on this theory from 1915.
Yes, we're going to scientifically validate, because we already debunked, or he already debunked, Newton's law. So now we're going to go to the new hotness from 1915, the General Theory of Relativity, which speaks to gravity. So we're all on the same page. Now we're going to see if it's a scientifically validated theory, which it has to be if it's a scientific theory. Got it?
When you say validated, what do you mean? I mean, what does a theory need to be or to be scientifically validated?
Yes, a scientific theory is a group of hypotheses or a hypothesis that has been validated via the scientific method by experiment.
Sure, that would work.
Is that reasonable? Do you need citation for that, or can we just roll with that?
No, it seems reasonable.
Okay.
So just bring it.
So what you're going to have to do on or before 19, it should be in his paper, 1915, General Theory of Relativity. So you don't have to really do anything. He should have done all that work for you, is what I'm trying to say. You don't have to do anything. You just have to post the natural phenomena observed, the hypothesis, and then the experiment. I'm going to need the independent variable, dependent variable, and controlled variables, and then the experiment. Simple.
Oh, that seems. Are you sure that we use this exact for every single theory we have?
No, just okay. To be a scientific theory, we just went over this. You need a hypothesis or a group of related hypotheses that have been supported through repeated experimental tests. So that's a scientific theory. Yes, he must have that to make it a scientific theory.
Is it the only definition we have?
Yes. That's
Really?
a scientific theory. Yes. That's why I asked you, did you need me to post citations for that? Do you need me to post citations what a scientific theory actually is?
No need, because there are many other definitions.
No, there's no. If there's another definition, then you're equivocating fallacy.
Well, no. The thing is, if there are many like definitions or attempted definition of science, then how
No,
do you know?
there isn't. I'm going to have to post this, right? Right? Scientific theory. 1 second. So go to 36 minutes after the hour. Here we go.
Yes.
Scientific theories explain how and why. This is my summation. I put it at the top. We'll get to citations in a moment. Scientific theories explain the how and why, mechanism, and process like germ theory. Scientific theories are the result of validated, confirmed scientific hypotheses that have been rigorously tested. So, from chemistry about, a scientific theory summarizes a hypothesis, a group of hypotheses that have been supported with repeated testing. From quarks to quasars, a scientific theory consists of one or more hypotheses that have been supported with repeated testing. From the University of Rochester Physics Labs, a scientific theory represents a hypothesis, a group of related hypotheses, which has been confirmed through repeated experimental tests. Any questions?
Sure. When you say testing, do you just think about your delicately set up your setup of control groups and variables and such? Is that your only definition of testing?
Scientific experiment is a hypothesis test. Yes.
Oh, so there may be more ways to test.
No, there's not. Nope. You test your hypothesis. Experiment is a hypothesis test. Do you know what a hypothesis is?
Yes, a model which still is not yet doesn't have solid data or evidence that supports its conclusion.
That's not a hypothesis.
What's it then?
It's not a scientific hypothesis, sir. You just made that up.
Indeed, it's not.
So what is it then? If not that.
A scientific hypothesis is based on cause and effect reasoning. It is an educated guess used to explain, it's a supposition to explain a natural cause and effect relationship. It contains two aspects. It contains your dependent variable, the observed phenomena that you observed in step one of the scientific method, and it contains an independent variable. So you got two constituent parts of a scientific hypothesis, which is more or less a prediction.
Yes.
Yes. So that's a hypothesis. Now, an experiment is one step further. It takes that hypothesis and adds control variables into it. And then you have a physical test. Any problem with that?
No need. Yeah, no problem.
Yeah, so that's a scientific experiment. So what I'm asking you for is going back to Einstein's paper, because that's the only way you can scientifically validate it. So what I'm going to need is, and you don't have to do it. Like I said, it should be in his paper. If it's an actual scientific theory, it should be easy. So I'm going to need the dependent variable. I'm going to need the independent variable. That's the hypothesis with both of those. And then I'm going to need the actual experiment that validates the general theory of relativity. Is that reasonable?
Yes, reasonable.
I figured it was.
Right. So from my own, Einstein might have provided some empirical proof from empirical data from the other world, from the real world, not just his math. But wasn't there a validation from outside Einstein? Like someone else found out something that supported his theory?
No mathematics. Don't need any mathematics. I didn't ask you for that. I asked you for the hypothesis, which is a cause and effect relationship. Therefore, the experiment must be a cause and effect relationship, validation or invalidation for the current hotness of the general theory of relativity explaining gravity.
Well, sure. It's the solar eclipse that happened 2 years afterwards, or the one that happened 8 years afterwards.
Well, that's fine. Now, we can get to that. However, like I said, we just went over a scientific theory, what one is. It must have validated scientific experiments validating that the cause is the correct one for the effect, right? So
sure.
We can get to other experiments after that. That's fine. I want the one that made it a scientific theory in 1915. It has to be in his paper. If not, then it's not an actual scientific theory. Fair?
Fair. Also, can I ask if you think that its theory was massively accurate the first year, the first month he published it?
Yes, it would have to be in his paper to make it a scientific theory.
Because I don't think there's such thing.
Then it's not an actual scientific theory.
even if an evidence was found later.
Yes, it's not a Remember what a scientific theory was?
Yes. Yes.
If it doesn't have an experiment within that paper, then it was never an actual scientific theory to begin with.
That doesn't sound reasonable.
That's
right?
Proven. So it's not proven. It's never been proven.
Well, no, the thing is, just because it's not in the evidence for it, it's not in the first paper, doesn't like magically invalidate the...
Is there a second paper on the general theory of relativity by Albert Einstein?
Well, sure, he did produce his special one in 1919.
Oh, the special one came before that in 1905. It doesn't have anything to do with general relativity, gravity.
My mistake. I was wrong. Well, yes.
Yep.
Well, I don't think he ever republished any major works afterwards.
So it's not an actual scientific theory. So where does that leave gravity?
Well, the thing is, anyone can add to this theory.
No, it's not a scientific theory.
Well, not then okay. Then let's name it not theory. I mean, he doesn't have copyright over his theory. I mean, anyone can use it and see for
it wasn't a scientific theory, sir. Sorry, that's begging the question. Okay, it was never a scientific. Don't overtalk me. Don't overtalk me. You keep on saying the theory. It was never a scientific theory. You haven't given me the experiments validating.
Well, I tried to do the eclipse. That's the first.
Eclipse, what eclipse? When did that happen?
Well, they tried it once, like 3 years after, but that didn't work because they were closed. But the one thing 1923.
So 1919, right?
Or 1933, like at least 5 years after the general theory of relativity.
Well, it's not a theory then because it's not in the paper. That's all right. We'll get to it. That's not a problem. I'm just saying that it was never a scientific theory to begin with.
Yes.
Okay, we can agree on that. Yes.
Yeah. Let's say that it was the theory the moment it struck the printing press.
Yeah, it wasn't a theory when it struck the printing press, and it wasn't a theory after the printing press had already printed it up because it had no experiment validating it. Correct?
Yes. But to my knowledge, there was no major empirical proof from the real world.
Right.
That's yes.
Right, so it wasn't a scientific theory. That's all I wanted to establish. Now, if you want to go with Arthur Eddington's 1919 fiasco, we can go there. That's fine. Are you ready? You prepared for that?
Oh, well, sure. I mean,
so yes, Arthur Eddington in 1919 is trying to validate a non-scientific theory. No problem. Go to Arthur Eddington's paper. This is not going to be a surprise. I'm going to need the natural phenomena observed, that is the dependent variable. I'm going to need the hypothesis, that's the independent variable with that dependent variable from the first step. And then I'm going to need the experiment, that is independent variable, dependent variable, and control variables. Can you do that in live stream voice text for us?
I don't think I'm but I mean, I don't think I can be able to read the whole paper.
Maybe do a word search.
Word search. Well, the thing is,
do a keyword search. Put in dependent variable, independent variable, hypothesis, experiment. See if you can find anything.
Maybe not using those words. Maybe they used some other words. But I can find the paper if you want right now. The Eddington paper, right?
It's the Eddington. It's your claim. I'm just looking for scientific validation of the non-scientific theory from 1915. It's quite. Now, this isn't unreasonable, right? I'm asking for scientific validation. This is supposed to be science. To be natural science, you must have validated scientific experiment. That's all I'm asking.
Yes, and you're in your right to ask that, but I don't think I can provide it right now.
Yeah.
It seems to be a very heavy read for me.
Okay. Hold on, Sonny.
All right.
I got him. That's all right. If you can't get it right now, then before you come in and claim gravity again, you're going to have that. Now, maybe not somewhere else, but in here, you have to have the scientific method along with the hypothesis, along with the experiment validated. Reasonable?
Very much.
And then we can move on from gravity. For right now, gravity has not been scientifically validated. So, do you have another point?
Well, if you drop a book on the ground, you will.
If I drop a book on the ground, what if I drop helium?
I don't know. Over a lot of time, maybe. Who
What
knows?
if I drop water? Yeah, over time, maybe. We're not into maybes here, conjecture. Everyone knows that gases
I'm talking
have
about a
all
book, though.
conceivable vectors. Don't overtalk me. Right?
Every
Gases
time.
have all conceivable vectors. Your gravity, whatever that is, says that there's only one vector, and it's down towards the center of mass, whatever the heck that is. Right? How can that be? How can you have
Wait, did you just say
theory or
that
law?
mass doesn't
I'm not
exist?
done yet. I try to be as concise as possible. I don't monologue, but I got to get my complete thought out before you respond. Is that okay?
Yeah, continue.
So how can you have only one vector in your theory or law, but gases have every conceivable vector possible? I'm done. Go.
Because gases are a different form. Okay, a book, solid object. Gas, no. It's not a solid object.
Who cares? Who's talking about solids?
You. I just said drop a book, not drop a fucking gas.
Drop a
Gas
book.
is not a
Yeah,
solid object.
but I'm sorry, but we have more than solids in our reality, correct?
Yeah, and maybe different forms of matter work differently under gravity.
And difference in the begging the
but you're
question
just-
fallacy because it's not established yet. So back to
You're
my
just
question.
giving us the effect. We want the cause. Sorry, Quantum Rise. He just keeps giving us the effect. I want the cause.
Well, he hasn't answered the question of one vector versus gases, which are matter. Are gases matter?
A different form, yeah.
Hey, who cares if it's a different phase?
Many people care if it's a different thing, okay?
It's not a
Still
different
matter.
thing.
Well, a flat and a round Earth is a different thing,
Oh
so
my
who
God.
cares?
Okay, shut him up because he's a fucking gish galloping moron.
I had a question to ask real quick
Yesterday.
to the gentleman who was talking before, Fargutin.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Are you like? It sounds like you're a teacher, or you're in a specific field. Is there a specific field that you teach, or
Well,
sounds-
I'm.
if you don't mind, I don't want you to reveal if you don't want to. I'm just kind of curious because. Go ahead.
Oh, sure. Well, as of now, I'm a student in a university.
Okay.
I'm not a teacher.
Yeah. Is there a specific field that you study? Just
Oh,
wondering.
it's in the science. It's physics, actually. First year.
First year physics. Okay. That's all. Sorry about that. Go ahead.
Right, no worries. And if I might just budge in, I think I have an explanation for why helium balloons go up and a book goes down, or why the skies go up when it's lighter than its surrounding.
We need the cause, not an explanation. We need the actual cause of it. You don't have that.
I think I do actually.
Why? Yeah. You're going to provide something that's describing the effect of something, but you don't have the cause of the effect.
Well, I do. I do. I would. Yes, the cause is let's call it, since it's not.
Not let's call it. No. What is it? You are the one that has the burden of proof. You're claiming
Sure.
gravity. You have no proof of this gravity. As we already went over, you don't have a hypothesis. Therefore, you don't have any control variables. You don't have a theory.
Right.
You don't have anything.
So here's another thing I'm going to suggest, Fargutin. I'm going to make things a little bit more difficult for you, actually, to think about. The idea that you're talking about gravity already presupposes that the Earth is a globe pulling things to the center of its mass, right? In your mind, you have this kind of concept, right?
I mean, yes. If gravity is correct, yes. If it's correct, then it explains the shape of our ball and vice versa.
Right, and vice versa. But here's the problem. If you do not have the presupposition that the Earth is a globe with the curvature, see, that's what we want here. When you come into this Discord, we want for evidence to be shown to us. Is there any evidence for the measurement of the curvature of the Earth? Fargutin?
None I can now provide.
Not that you can provide. All right.
Right now.
So, so right now, here's the problem that we're going to run across right now. The fact that you can't provide the evidence for the measurement of the Earth's curvature, you're now working on a presupposition that you just believe is true. You don't know it to be true. So everything that precedes you, your arguments like gravity, Coriolis, or anything you could think of physics that would work on a globe cannot work if you just believe them to be true. We need evidence that the Earth is indeed a globe so that you can talk about gravity the way that you want to. But if you can't, we can't hear a just so story of what you think is or is not happening on a presupposition. Do you understand what I'm saying?
Sure, yes.
And right, so in order for you to have a conversation here, you have to first provide the foundation of what is that you're standing on, right? So if it's a globe, then you need to provide the evidence for the measurement of the Earth's curvature. And then you can have a conversation about what the Earth is or is not doing with gravity. But because of the fact that you can't provide that evidence, it is just a belief that you have that the Earth is a globe and that there is gravity working on that globe. But you don't have any evidence of it, so now you're talking about a belief that you're presenting to us about what you think gravity is doing. But that is just a concept built upon a presupposition that you believe. Has nothing to do with reality as we know it. That is big problems for you, sir. We first have to establish the foundation, which is that the Earth is indeed a globe by way of measuring the curvature of the Earth. If you do not have that, you do not have a globe, and you do not have the physics that work on the globe. Simple as that. Provide us the evidence that it is a globe, and then we can talk about what gravity is or is not doing.
As I said before, as I said right now, I don't have any direct evidence of the curvature of the planet Earth.
Okay, so now we're going to be talking about beliefs then, because that's all you have is a belief that the Earth is a globe. And the physics then would follow that. But we don't want to talk about what we believe in this chat. We want people to bring evidence for what they know to be true. If they do not have the evidence, then we're not going to talk about beliefs. And we definitely don't want to hear people preaching to us of what they think that they believe they live on. That conversation has to stop, and it's going to. We've reached the end of those kinds of arguments. We're moving forward into a new year. We want people to get on board with bringing the evidence or find somewhere else to talk about their beliefs, because this place has everything to do with evidence and little to nothing to do with about beliefs.
Okay, sure. Can you at least, can I just ask you, what do you think evidence is?
Direct measurement of the Earth's curvature.
As in, like,
hold on a second. Sorry? It just depends. Remember, we talked about your claim of gravity. Well, gravity is supposed to be science or natural science. So we're going to need scientific evidence. To have scientific evidence, you need validated, confirmed experiments. That's number one. Correct?
Sure, yes.
So if it's science, we're going to need that.
Yes, and it is a very, it's a very rational thing to ask, but the thing is, I have a fear. Sorry?
If your claim is about geometry, then you're going to have to provide the geometry of the Earth and then confirm it. Is that reasonable also?
Yes.
Okay.
Completely, actually.
Okay, there you go. Go ahead. Sorry to interrupt you.
Oh, no worries. Well, the thing the thing is, I think that what you think of as an experiment and what I think of as an experiment, it may differ.
No, it can't differ because there's only one definition of a scientific experiment. You're a physics major, for God's sake.
Yes, I am. And definitions, well, who made them?
Who made the definitions for an experiment?
Yes.
The scientific establishment made the Do you know what three constituent parts of a scientific experiment?
Well, I don't know yours. Can you
They're not mine.
Okay, sorry.
My words, sir. These terms have been defined for at least 200 years.
The thing is,
Okay, hold
scientists-
on. Let's go over this. Hold on 1 second. I was in the middle of something. I'm going to have to break off. All right, give me a moment.
No worries.
Let's go. This should do it right here. So, where am I at so I don't post this in the wrong
Live stream voice text.
voice? Because I was headed to do that exact thing.
Yeah, I know.
All right, so here we go. It's too big. 1 second. Let me stop right there because that shouldn't be too big. I know that's what she said. So, come on, do it for me, baby. There you go. Okay. I'd like to direct everyone's attention to 56 minutes after the hour. Let me know when you're there. Fargutin?
Yes, I think I've seen it now.
Okay, from California State University, keyword is testable. That is, you will perform a test of how two variables might be related. This is when you are doing a real you are testing variables. From Penn State University, there should be 3 categories of variables in every experiment: dependent, independent, and controlled. From explorable.com, that's a professional research organization, there are 3 important variables you have to remember when you're designing your experiment: independent, dependent, and controlled. Anne-Marie Helmenstein, PhD, Biomedical Sciences. When you design an experiment, you are controlling and measuring variables. There are 3 types of variables: controlled, independent, and dependent. From my tutor, UK, GCSE Chemistry, what are the 3 main variables within a scientific experiment? Independent, controlled, dependent. Would you like me to post another 50 of them?
No need.
Okay,
Yes.
so we're good. That is a scientific experiment. A scientific experiment is a hypothesis test. It validates natural cause and effect relationships. Period. There's no other definition for a scientific experiment. Good?
Sure, yes. Let's go with that.
Okay. So we're
Just
good.
be-
That's what we need. If you have a scientific claim, it's not out of the realm of reasonability to ask for scientific validation. And that's experiment. Now, if it's not a scientific claim, that's no problem. Depends on what your claim is. If it's a geometrical claim, then you have to provide the geometry of the Earth and then validate it for us by demonstration with a measurement. Right? If it's a logical claim, then it must follow logical guidelines. Modus ponens, modus tollens. Each premise must be validated so the conclusion's true. Reasonable?
Yes.
So that's all Miggy was asking for.
Well, I can say that in that form, you just to describe any evidence that I may have in that form. I don't think I can do because I think I just discovered the definition.
Right.
The
Okay.
Right.
That's fair. And that's fair. I don't want to hammer you with everything. You can go off and figure out and get your research in line with your claims, right? If you claim gravity, then you got to have to come up with scientific experiment. If you claim geometry, like I said, then go do the geometry. You don't have to do it yourself. You don't have to recreate the wheel here, right? You just have to do research and find it. Correct?
Correct.
Yeah. So, and then come back. We're not over pressuring you now because I understand you're new to this, and that's fine. But when you come in here, your feet are going to be held to the fire again. Okay? Fair?
Sure. Fair. Very fair.
And I would expect that. If I came to your forum and I started making claims, I would expect you to hold my feet to the fire. I wouldn't find that unreasonable. If I made a claim, I'd have to support it. Right?
Right.
Yep. Or we're going to go down the village idiot lane where people can make baseless assertions after baseless assertions. What they're doing, most people do, is they're parroting wiki or they're parroting mindlessly somebody else has told them, no matter their credentials, right? We don't care about that. We want demonstration. We want experiment. We want illustration. And that's not unreasonable for anyone, I don't think. Fair?
That's right.
Yeah, fair.
Okay, that's all we got. You can go out and get that stuff, and you can come back anytime you want.
Well, all right then. Well, thank you for this first chat, and I'll see you then.
Okay.
See you, Fargutin. Come back,
ya.
man.
Yep.
That's a nice little tie a bone at the end of that.
He seems like a good guy, and he's going to go searching that stuff. He'll be back.
Yeah, I hope so.
Yep. Cool.